In the early 12th century, Norway was a kingdom still searching for a lasting sense of stability. The era of sweeping Viking conquests had faded, and the Norwegian crown rested on fragile foundations. Internally, the kingdom was marked by competing noble families, weak central authority, and regional loyalties that ran deeper than any oath to the throne. Though Norway had been unified over a century earlier by King Harald Fairhair, that unity had never been complete or entirely secure. After generations of warfare, temporary alliances, and dynastic shifts, the royal line of Norway was anything but straightforward. By 1103, the death of King Magnus III, known to history as Magnus Barefoot, led to a rare arrangement, a joint kingship among his three sons, Sigurd, Oystein, and Olaf. The unusual triple kingship helped prevent immediate civil war, with Oystein and Sigurd maintaining a largely peaceful and cooperative reign. Their rule focused on church building, consolidating royal authority, and included Sigurd's significant achievement of leading Norway's only crusade to the Holy Land. But peace was temporary. As the brothers died one by one, first Oystein in 1123, then Olaf shortly after, Sigurd stood alone, known as Sigurd the Crusader. His reign was significant, not only for his crusading fame, but for his efforts to strengthen the Christian church and central authority. Even so, old issues persisted: a lack of formal succession laws, the continued rise of powerful local chieftains, and deep-rooted family rivalries. Sigurd left behind a young son, Magnus, who was expected to inherit the throne. Yet even before Sigurd's death, Norway's succession was already under threat from outside its borders. It was in this culturally blended world, far from the court of Norway, that a man named Harald appeared. He claimed to be the illegitimate son of the late King Magnus Barefoot, conceived during Magnus's expeditions in the British Isles. His name was Harald Gille, and though few in Norway had ever heard of him before, his arrival would change the course of the kingdom's history. Harald Gille, also known as Harald IV of Norway, claimed to be a son of King Magnus Barefoot, born out of wedlock during one of Magnus's military in the British Isles. According to the sagas, Harald was born around 1102 or 1103, likely in Ireland or the Hebrides. His mother's identity remains uncertain. Most sources simply describe her as Irish or Gaelic. She was not of royal blood, which would have made Harald's claim to the Norwegian throne highly controversial in the eyes of many Norwegian nobles. The name Gille is derived from the Gaelic name Gille Christ, meaning servant of Christ, a clue to Harald's Irish upbringing and the Christian culture in which he was raised. For much of his early life, Harald lived far from the politics of Norway. He was largely unknown in the Scandinavian world until he made a bold entrance in the 1120s. At that time, King Sigurd was still on the throne. Harald approached him with the claim that he was Sigurd's half-brother, one of King Magnus Barefoot's illegitimate sons. It was not an uncommon claim, since Norway's royal succession often allowed sons born outside of marriage, provided their fathers acknowledged them. Even so, the burden of proof rested on Harald himself, and Sigurd refused to take his word at face value. To settle the matter, Harald agreed to undergo a trial by ordeal, a brutal method used in the Middle Ages to determine the truth of a man's claim through divine judgment. In Harald's case, this involved walking barefoot over burning plowshares. Miraculously, he survived the ordeal without significant injury, a result seen as proof of his royal blood. Sigurd allowed him to stay in Norway, but insisted that Harald make an oath not to press his claim to the throne during Sigurd's lifetime or while Sigurd's son, Magnus, was still alive. Harald honored this oath while Sigurd lived, but after Sigurd's death in 1130, he immediately challenged Magnus for the crown. With this, Norway entered a new phase of civil war that would last for over a century, tearing the kingdom apart. Rather than resolve the issue through battle, the two rivals initially agreed to a joint kingship, much like what had occurred earlier in the century. However, the power sharing was uneasy from the start. Tensions simmered, and by 1134, the arrangement collapsed into open conflict. Magnus gained an early advantage and defeated Harald in battle at Firalive. Harald was forced to flee the country, escaping to Denmark to regroup. He returned the following year with renewed strength and support, and this time he succeeded in defeating and capturing Magnus. Magnus was brutally mutilated, blinded, castrated, and imprisoned in a monastery, removing him as a political threat while Harald now ruled alone. But Harald Gille's time as sole ruler was short-lived. His reign, even before Magnus's defeat, had been characterized by a lack of strong central control. He depended heavily on alliances with powerful regional nobles, many of whom had their own agendas. These noble factions often manipulated the succession and supported various pretenders to the throne, further destabilizing the kingdom. In 1136, just a few years after he had gained sole power, Harald's enemies struck. A man named Sigurd Slembe, yet another claimant to be a son of Magnus Barefoot, emerged, asserting his right to the throne. Like Harald before him, Sigurd had spent years abroad and returned to Norway claiming royal blood. But unlike Harald, he was not welcomed or tolerated. Harald rejected his claim outright. Sigurd Slembe responded with violence. In the night, he and his supporters broke into Harald's quarters in Bergen and assassinated him. The killing was brutal. Harald was cut down in his bed. He was around 33 years old at the time of his death. His sudden assassination threw Norway into further chaos. Harald left behind several sons, including Inge, Sigurd, and Oystein, each by different mothers, and all of them would eventually stake claims to the throne. Their struggles, and those of other pretenders and factions, would keep Norway locked in civil war for decades.